The pump clicked off. Too late. The screen flashed paid, and the manager was already shouting, "What do you think you're doing?" His voice cracked through the gas station like a slap. Ethan Cole froze, hand still on the nozzle. The old sedan beside him coughed, rust lining its doors. Inside, his mother sat quietly, eyes down, pretending not to hear. "You used company fuel," the manager sneered. "For that car?" People stared. Phones came out. Humiliation burned hotter than the gasoline smell. Ethan tried to explain, tried to speak. "You're done," the manager said, ripping the badge from his shirt. "Get out." Ethan walked away unemployed, ashamed, defeated. And 3 hours later, a black Rolls-Royce rolled into that same station and stopped. Stay with us. Don't blink. What happens next changes every life in this story. Like, subscribe, and keep watching. Ethan Cole had learned early what it meant to be careful. Careful with money. Careful with words. Careful with pride. At 26, he worked nights at the gas station on Route 9, saving every dollar to keep his mother's car running and her medicine paid for. Margaret Cole had raised him alone after a factory accident crushed her spine and every dream that came with it. She walked with pain. She lived with dignity. The gas station manager, Frank Miller, didn't see dignity. He saw rules, power, control. Frank loved reminding employees who was replaceable. Cameras watched everything. Customers watched nothing. That night, witnesses stood nearby. Truck drivers. Commuters, a woman buying cigarettes, while Frank made an example out of Ethan. Public, loud, cruel. What no one knew was this. Ethan wasn't just pumping gas to survive. He was watching, listening, learning. And the quiet boy everyone underestimated had a past. Frank Miller never bothered to ask about. Frank Miller stormed out of the office with the receipt clenched in his fist like evidence of a crime. "You think I don't see this?" he barked, shoving it toward Ethan's chest. "You filled her tank on company time. Company gas." Margaret Cole sat in the driver's seat, hands gripping the wheel, eyes wide with shame she didn't deserve. "It's my mother," Ethan said quietly. "She didn't have enough to get home." Frank laughed, not kindly, not nervously. The laugh of a man who enjoyed having an audience. "Then she shouldn't be driving," Frank said. "And you shouldn't be stealing." Phones came out. Someone whispered. Another customer shook his head but stayed silent. Silence was cheaper than courage. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out folded bills. Cash. Counted. Exact. "I can pay it back," he said. Frank slapped the money away. Bills scattered across the concrete like discarded dignity. "No," Frank said. "I'm firing you. Right now. And I'm calling it theft." The word landed heavy. Margaret tried to open the door. Ethan raised a hand, gentle, steady, a promise without words. "It's okay, Mom." But it wasn't. Frank grabbed the clipboard, scribbled furiously, and pointed to the cameras overhead. "Everything's recorded. You'll never work at a station again." Ethan nodded, calm. Too calm. Because Frank didn't know what Ethan had been recording too. The unpaid overtime. The skipped breaks. The maintenance shortcuts. The cash Frank skimmed when he thought no one noticed. Ethan had kept copies. Photos, dates, names. He picked up his jacket slowly, helping his mother out of the car before guiding her to the curb. He whispered something to her. She nodded through tears. As Ethan walked away, headlights cut through the darkness. A long black car turned into the station. Too quiet. Too smooth. And the emblem on the hood made Frank Miller's smile falter. Because that wasn't just any car. That was a Rolls-Royce. The Rolls-Royce glided to a stop beside Pump 3. Engine silent. Paint black as midnight. Chrome reflecting every stunned face at the station. Frank Miller straightened his jacket instinctively. This wasn't anger anymore. This was fear. The rear door opened. A man stepped out slowly, silver hair, tailored coat, posture sharp enough to cut glass. His eyes swept the station once, taking everything in. The scattered bills on the ground. Margaret Cole trembling on the curb. Ethan standing between her and the chaos. "Good evening," the man said calmly. Frank rushed forward, smile glued on. "Sir, welcome. We don't usually get, The man raised a hand. Silence fell. My name is Charles Whitaker, he said, chairman of Whitaker Automotive Group. Phones lowered. Breaths caught. Whitaker Automotive owned hundreds of stations, including this one. Frank swallowed. Charles turned, not to Frank, but to Ethan. You must be Ethan Cole, he said, the young man who paid for his mother's gas instead of letting her sleep in her car. Ethan blinked. Yes, sir. Charles nodded once. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen, turned it outward. Receipts, timestamps, video clips. Frank's face drained. Your unpaid overtime records, Charles said evenly. Your maintenance falsifications. Your skimming. All sent anonymously this morning. He looked at Ethan. Along with a note, Charles continued. That said, I'm not reporting this for revenge. I'm reporting it because people deserve better. The station was dead quiet. Charles turned back to Frank. You fired him for $10 of gas, Charles said. But you stole thousands. Frank opened his mouth. Nothing came out. 2 more cars pulled in, security, corporate, legal. Charles didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Frank Miller, he said, you're terminated. Effective immediately. And before sunrise, charges will be filed. Frank stumbled back. The clipboard slipped from his hands. The cameras watched him now. Charles knelt beside Margaret. Ma'am, he said gently, your son did nothing wrong. Tears slid down her cheeks. Then Charles stood and faced Ethan again. I've been looking for managers with integrity, he said. People who choose right when no one is watching. He gestured toward the Rolls-Royce. Get in, he said. We have a lot to talk about. Ethan hesitated, looked at his mother. She squeezed his hand. Go, she whispered. As Ethan stepped toward the car, the same people who filmed his firing now filmed something else. A man who lost everything, being handed everything, and Frank Miller? He watched it all collapse, in the reflection of a Rolls-Royce hood. By morning, the story was everywhere, not because of the Rolls-Royce, not because of the billionaire, but because of the reason. Gas station worker, fired for helping mother, hired by corporate owner hours later. People shared it not for drama, but for justice. Ethan Cole didn't become rich overnight. That wasn't the miracle. He became seen. Charles Whitaker kept his word. Ethan was offered a management training, position, paid, transparent, with benefits his mother never had. More importantly, with values that couldn't be bought. Margaret moved into a small apartment 2 months later. Nothing fancy, but warm, safe. Paid for by Ethan's first bonus, which he tried to refuse until Charles smiled and said, Let your mother rest. Frank Miller didn't disappear quietly. Audits followed. Lawsuits stacked up. Employees testified, finally free to speak. The station changed hands. New management. New policies. A sign on the door read, If you're short on gas and long on life, talk to us. It wasn't charity. It was dignity. Ethan still stopped at that station sometimes. Not to remind anyone of what happened, but to remind himself that character isn't tested when it's convenient. It's tested when it costs you something. And sometimes, just sometimes, the world watches quietly and sends a Rolls-Royce to say, You did the right thing.